العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومطاعنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. Honorable ulama, respected elders, brothers in Islam, and listeners of Radio Islam International, yesterday being the 1st of December, which is commemorated worldwide as World AIDS Day. The purpose of World AIDS Day is to energize, to mobilize, to create awareness with regards to AIDS and to educate people as to the global extent to which AIDS has affected the human race. It has become a major challenge, not only globally or to a greater extent in South Africa or in Africa, but everybody across the globe has been affected by AIDS. Just take a glance at the pandemic. 34 million people living with HIV globally. 2.1 million people, 2.1 million children have been affected by AIDS, and 2.7 million were infected by HIV in 2010, of which 2 million have passed on. So that is the global statistics with regard to this. And sadly also, more than half of those that are affected by AIDS, they contracted before the age of 25, and before the age of 35, they already passed away. So that is the statistics with regards to this pandemic. Now, the question may arise as to why should we as a Muslim community be discussing HIV? The reality of the matter is that as a community, we have become more promiscuous. Our youth have become more active at a younger age, and that is the reality. Together with that, we as a community, we are not in isolation. We are living part of a bigger society. We are not insulated from what's happening around us. South Africa has the highest amount of people that is affected by HIV globally, with an amount of 5.3 million people, including 220,000 children. So we are not in isolation. We are living part of a bigger society. And our Muslim community also is evolving day by day. We have foreigners coming in, integrating into our society. They also form part of our Muslim society. With these foreigners coming in, it brings different challenges. And therefore, this challenge also at our doorstep. And if we do not pay attention to it, very soon we will not know what the proportional effect will be upon us. So we cannot turn a blind eye to this, because before we know it, it will be knocking on our door. As we are aware of the fact that AIDS can be contracted by a number of ways, but the primary way in which it is transmitted is by sexual relation, by promiscuous sexual relations, and that is the primary way of how it is transmitted. We have the government making different slogans and issuing different slogans. They saying safe sex or be wise and condomize. Remember, doing a wrong thing in a right way will never make it legitimate. So using a condom will never make that halal or permissible. Similarly, they saying safe sex. We say rather save sex. Abstinence, that is the way to go. The only way to protect oneself from the pandemic is to abstain from it, to protect and to preserve it for a later stage when one does fulfill this in a halal manner. As human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with certain desires, with certain urges, and this is totally in accordance. We are not required to suppress this. In fact, it is a well-known fact that the desire and the pleasure that man gets from sexual relations is the highest form of pleasure. So therefore, Islam does not say suppress this. Rather, Islam has regulated it and given us avenues in which we can fulfill this and express this desire and pleasure. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to the Sahaba that if you engage in relation with your spouse, then it is sadaqah. You will be rewarded for that. They were taken aback by this and said, "O Nabi of Allah, we enjoying ourselves and rewarded for that?" Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then said, "What happens if you express this or vent this in the wrong avenue? Then what would it be?" They said it would be sin. So verily, by utilizing and by channeling this in the correct avenue, it becomes a means of reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphatically says in the Noble Quran, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشًا. Do not even go close to zina, for it is indeed an immoral way. It is a wretched way. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says do not go close to it? The reason is because of it being immoral. And the other is that it is very attractive. That when you go close to it, you will get sucked into it. You will be drawn into it. And the consequences of that is very grave. Zina is indeed wretched. It has been mentioned with regards to what had transpired after the conquest of Makkah, and when the people of Makkah were entering into Islam on a wholesale level. The Quraysh, who were up until then not Muslim, many of the women also accepting Islam. And then a group of the women came into the tent of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they came to pledge the allegiance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then instructs Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the Noble Quran, يا أيها النبي إذا جاءك المؤمنات يبايعنك على ألا يشركن بالله شيء ولا يسرقن ولا يزنين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlined the different things on which they have to pledge the allegiance to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And they pledged the allegiance to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And among the women that came to the tent of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at that time was a lady by the name of Hinda. And Hinda was the very lady that chewed the liver of Hamza radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Sayyid al-Shuhada. So these verses are conveyed to them, and what is demanded from them are also clearly stated to them. And part of that is do not steal, do not ascribe partners with Allah, and amongst all of that is do not commit zina. When Hinda hears this and she understands what is being said to her, she then says, "O Nabi of Allah, will a respectful, upright lady ever commit zina? Will a respectful lady ever commit zina?" So this is the very lady that, to understand her position, is she chewed the liver of a human being. And she's saying that will a respectful lady commit zina? So we can understand from this the despicable nature of the act of zina. And zina itself, fornication, adultery, it ruins our lives. It ruins our careers. It ruins marriages. It breaks down homes. And the unfortunate thing is that if you speak to people that are in the field, in social counseling, the biggest reason for which marriages these days are breaking down, it is because of zina, because of extramarital relationship. That is a fact, and that is the reality, and we cannot shy away from that. That has become the sole or the main reason for which our marriages are breaking down these days. Our society, unfortunately, has trivialized zina to a great extent. If you look at the messages that are circulated on the phone, if you look at the jokes that we make amongst our friends, it is very much orientated around trivializing zina. We do not consider it to be the grave sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained it to be. And therefore, we consider it to be insignificant. There are a number of reasons for why we've reached this position. One of the possible reasons is the role that the media has played. The role that television has played, as well as advertising and magazines. In all of this, there are very strong sexual undertones in the advertisements, in the storylines of soapies, in the storylines of movies. And for this reason, our children from a very young age, they are being stimulated in this regard. And therefore, it is also a known fact that our children from a very young age have become sexually active. As a result of this, also as a result of this, that our adults have been increased in there or have become engaged in extramarital relations. So the media has played a huge role in this. Media has become part of our daily life, and it affects our daily life in different ways. And the subtle messages that we see all the time, the subtle emails, messages on the phone, technology has also played a huge role in this, the social networks. Want to flirt? That's a message someone gets on a phone. So all of this has contributed to trivializing zina and making it rampant in our community. Pornography, how accessible has that become to our youth? And as a result of which, we find ourselves in the situation. In a typical storyline of a movie, we'll find that very seldom is a happy, stable marriage in which both partners are faithful to each other portrayed as an ideal situation, unless the people are over 60. Then it is fine to be settling down with one partner. But if you're younger than that, then immorality, promiscuity is glamorized. It is made to be shown to be the in thing in which people are engaging, and that is how a person fulfills the aspiration with regard to the world. So these are the undertones from the media which have impacted directly on our life and is breaking the moral fiber of our society. These are some of the factors, and that is the current situation. We cannot turn a blind eye to it, and that has resulted in the situation that we find ourselves in. What we need to understand that this world, the principle of cause and effect is very much what is dominant in this world. When there's a good thing, there are good consequences. When there's evil consequences. If you eat good food, you'll be healthy. If you're going to eat junk food, it's going to impact on your health. Similarly, when we engage in these sorts of activities, it becomes rampant in our society, then we will have diseases like these. Diseases what the previous nations never heard upon. And if we live a good life, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلُ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. That if the people, they believe in Allah, and they do good amal, Allah Ta'ala says, we will open the doors of the heavens upon them. Our treasures, our bounties will come upon them, one after the other. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Allah Ta'ala says, we will give you a good life. That is what we want for you. All you have to do, male or female, live the life that we want from you. Live a life of obedience. Believe in Allah and do good amal. Obey all the injunctions of the Sharia, and then you will taste a good life, hayat and tayyiba. But on the contrary, if we're going to live the life that is portrayed in the media, what the Western civilization say, we need to understand that the Western civilization, the very basis and the essence of it is extravagance and immorality. And we as Muslims, the basis, our value is simplicity and modesty. There is a complete contradiction between the two. We can never marry the two. It is the distance between the north and the south, the North Pole and the South Pole. It is completely different. Therefore, we cannot marry the two. We need to realize that what is required of us and the life that we ought to live is in complete contrast. It is a complete dichotomy to what the Western media is propagating. So we need to realize that, and we need to fashion our lives in that regard. And only then will we be saved from things like this that totally destroyed our community. Whilst the primary way in which AIDS is contracted is via sexual relations, we need to also understand that it also can inadvertently be transmitted from a mother to a newborn child by means of by blood transmission, as well as